Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point. French President François Hollande wrapped up a 3-day visit to Egypt. He is now in Amman, Jordan. Worth noting, Egypt and France enjoy long strategic historical relations. According to Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, trade balance between Egypt and France amounts to $2.58 billion as a last count. During the 3-day visit, a number of agreements, 18 specifically, were signed and worth $2.26 billion. This evening with a distinguished panel, we'll be discussing what did we achieve from this visit and what are the follow-up plans. With us this evening to discuss this issue is Dr. Salah Nusseir, who is a research and development expert. A pleasure to have you with us.
Yes,
with us also this evening is Dr. محمد الحليم, who is a political analyst. A pleasure to have you with us.
A pleasure is mine, indeed.
Before we go into details, with us on the phone is Mr. Hassan Bahnan, who's advisor to the French Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Bahnan, can you hear us?
Yes, I do. Good evening.
Good evening. I know you've had quite a few busy days. If you can just sum up, give us a wrap-up of what you think was achieved in the 3-day visit.
Yes, with pleasure. First, I can say that the visit of President François Hollande is described by almost everybody as a positive one, as a successful one, knowing that the French-Egyptian relations are strong at all levels.
Yes.
In the framework of this state visit by the French president, we, the French Chamber of Commerce, organized an economic forum yesterday that included around 600 businessmen from all sectors and French enterprises that came on with the official delegation of the president, amounting to something like 82 enterprises. I believe that the talks in Egypt included political, military, cultural, and of course economic issues. I won't talk about the 3 first ones, but I will go further into details about the economic ones. As I can say, Egypt is important for France for many reasons, for its geographic position, being a crossroad between Europe, Middle and Far East, even through the Suez Canal, and especially Africa. So it's sort of a platform to export production here, either done locally or in joint ventures with France.
Yes.
Second, you have in Egypt 90 million potential consumers. And a point that I would like to mention is that it's enough to see what happened in the last 10 days to know the importance of Egypt. We had the president of Mauritania, we had the president and then a United Arab Emirates high-ranking delegation, then the German vice chancellor heading a strong economic delegation, and Mr. François Hollande, the French president. So
and the Crown Prince as well.
And of course, the king of Saudi Arabia.
King.
Yeah. And all this shows the importance of Egypt. You mentioned it a few minutes ago. There were 18 MOUs signed between the two sides. And I can go into details further if you like, or right now.
Can you just give us the areas? There are agreements in which sectors?
Yeah. There are intergovernmental agreements in the fields of urban transport, energy, renewable energy, the gas sector, the professional training, social protection, for health insurance, tourism, culture, and something that is, according to me, important, the preparation of an exhibition on the Suez Canal in 2018. Now, specifically about the trade agreements, we have the financing of a energy plant.
A power plant.
Power plant in Suez Canal. Suez, of 200 megawatts for an amount of 50 million euros, financing an electric control center, bringing gas to the low class, 68 million euros, renovating the tramway of Ramses Heliopolis in Cairo, water treatment unit in Alexandria for 60 million euros, the Cairo Metro, which is one of the main ones, actually, amounting to something like 1 billion Egyptian pounds. I believe this is one of the most important ones that was signed. And the military and civil communication satellites. And the two last ones are the building a solar plant in Sharm el-Sheikh, 50 megawatt, and last, the very sophisticated identity cards. This is with the Ministry of Interior, if I'm not mistaken. So these are globally the agreements that were signed, and it shows the importance of Egypt and the excellent relations prevailing between France and Egypt.
Sir, whenever we talk about especially agreements and MOUs, right here in this studio, a lot of people usually say, well, it's ink on paper. I mean, following the economic summit and different visits, people would come and they would sign MOUs and pledge to do this, and then it does not see light.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I don't want to go back to last year's economic conference. The past is the past. Let's think of the future. I have one special word, which is the key word for success. It's follow-up. Meaning that all these agreements that were signed should be followed and not remain in drawers, as they say. So I can't personally give any assurance about their outcome, but I am sure that if there is proper follow-up, we will reach the goals we have already set for within these few days.
Before we wrap up, maybe I'd like to ask you concerns. I mean, you said you had representatives from 82 enterprises.
Yes.
The French enterprises or the French businessmen, are they concerned about the investment climate in Egypt, the business climate, the investment laws? What concerns do they have?
By definition, of course, they would like to do business with Egypt, and the proof is their visit yesterday and the day before yesterday, and the talks they had many, many talks, and especially in our forum organized by the French Chamber of Commerce. I was witnessing the way treating the different issues and going and talking to people and not just sitting and listening or watching the whole. No, there was very serious talks. They even had separate talks in other halls and rooms, definitely. But the one thing you mentioned, which is very true, is that it's not, I won't call it a fear, but there is some apprehension about some bureaucracy in Egypt, okay? Let's be clear. Bureaucracy is a little bit annoying there. But they listened to 4 ministers that were present at our forum yesterday, and all of them, they promised that they will do their utmost to reduce the steps to follow in order to do business in Egypt. So they were convinced. I'm not going into details, but they gave many different examples, and they gave rules and regulations they will put into force. So French in general, French enterprises want to do business in Egypt because the costing is favorable for doing business in Egypt.
Mr. Hassan Behnan, advisor to the French Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you in studio soon. Gentlemen, this is, in a nutshell, the main developments. And maybe if we would add anything to that, then it will be probably some military cooperation between Egypt and France. How would you describe the visit? And maybe I can start with Dr. Salah. How would you see the visit?
Well,
in light of what you heard.
Yeah, I guess if you've asked the very good question, is how is it going to be, how are you going to be sure that it will be implemented? I mean, do we have any means to the implementation, taking into consideration the fact that there is a difference between MOUs and agreements, and how committed are these agreements supposed to finance what, when, responsibility is counterpart. Many questions can be raised along this path, and we have to be sure that we need to really get going. We cannot just keep standing still, signing agreements without implementation stressed. And how are we going to guarantee this? Do we have a committee joint venturing the process of transferring? That's number one. Like Talat Harb has done it. And then in the indigenization process of what has been transferred, so that we can really doing our thing, I mean, without that we will be always depending on what we can import once and again, whether it is the consumables or it is whatever, we need to be looking ahead so that if those who would like us make sure that they are going to help us the way we end up doing things and will become the springboard to Africa.
Yes.
Before it's too late for us to do this job.
Dr. Muhammad, how do you see it?
Yeah, as it stands, the appearance of it seems to be very much fruitful, very much successful in almost every conceivable respect. Well, let us analyze first, actually, I mean, the way he welcomed, actually, and treated here in Egypt, actually. The fact that vast amount of popularity and hospitality, actually, as much as a great deal of happiness, came to be quite very effective of what sort of happy fellow figures, actually, that would seem to be quite receiving him whenever he appeared for the first time. The fact that President François Hollande seems to be quite, at the very beginning, loving Egypt in every conceivable respect, very much having something in common with the Egyptian way of life, with the Egyptian people. Well, before going actually to the analytical approach actually of the visit, let us say that between Egypt and France, we have got something in common actually. And the French Revolution, with its slogans and mottos, liberté, fraternité, égalité, liberty, fraternity, equality, came to be regarded as part and parcel of our own daily life actually, of the revolution of the 25th of January and 30th of June. This is quite apparent actually on almost every conceivable respect that we do really anticipate and we do really detect as Egypt. Apart from this and that, apart from the things that would seem to be quite in common with the French people, I would say that it does leave a very deep impact actually on the people in here. To begin with, actually, we have got the Sorbonne University branch in here in Cairo, actually, implementing a sort of a cultural touch of the French people, actually. Apart from the cultural heritage, and the sort of the vast amount of the etiquette and the rules of etiquette and the French impact that used to be quite very much here, there, and everywhere, even on English literature and English literary masterpieces. Given the fact that literature seems to be quite a mirror of society, it would seem to be part and parcel of everyday life. Apart from the military point of view, you can really anticipate an extreme sense of friendship and friendliness between two types of people that are having what you might think in common between them. The triangle that would seem to be quite very much responsible for the success and progress and almost each single nation, which is education, has been eliminated in here, and then safety and security also seems to be quite part and parcel of the agreement. I can really detect sort of the relationship and the exchanging of some speeches actually between our charismatic president Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the other counterpart François Hollande. I can really agree deal of comprehensiveness, of friendliness, of respectability and of dignity.
Are you concerned that what has been the MOUs that have been signed might not see light?
Well, I mean, from the cultural heritage, sense of give and take dialogue that seems to be part and parcel of the daily exchanging, discourse, and from the frankness on the faces of both parties, actually. From what we really do know for sure about the historical events, about the cultural details, and about the ways of everyday life, actually, about the French people, would give us an impression that they are very much honest. And
I'm not doubting their honesty. I'm saying, will we as Egypt and France pursue it so that it comes into light? I mean, we've signed the MOUs before, and they have not seen light.
That's absolutely right. But they would if they could, I would say. And I can really say that they could, once they would. You got it?
Do we have the will?
Well, of course, we do have the will. As much as I can really say that the French people, very much enthusiastic and very much frank and sincere and very much honest and very much keeping their own promise till the very end of their own daily life, actually. And don't forget the fact that by establishing these strategies and these companies and interfering again within the Suez Canal, not only finding suitable chances for employment, for finding jobs, actually, for the vast amount of the unemployed youngsters and people. But in addition to that, actually, you can find that it would lead inevitably, actually, to the final disastrous end of the terrorist acts. The fact that President François Hollande was very much concerned in his own speech with our own charismatic leader, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, about putting an end and actually finalizing all the achievements of all those terrorist actions and putting an end for the terrorism in the meantime. Given the fact that France was very much victimized at one stage since 1 year ago, actually, a large number of explosives and very much massacred this account, actually, came to be regarded as part and parcel of the daily life of the French people. And as such, we have got something in common as well, not only in our own fidelity, not only in our own mutual identity, but in the meantime, in our own one target that we would have to achieve it at the end of the day, which is putting an end for terrorism in general. And I think that French President François Hollande was very much concerned of how massive and very much gigantic the role of Egypt in the Middle East as being one of the best among the rest of all the other Arab countries, as assuming the role of a leader, that it would seem to be quite very much important, the role that it is going to play for putting an end for the terrorism in the Middle East. And once terrorism is being finalized in here, in the same way in there. So mutual things and mutual identification, actually. We have got ties of concern, we have got ties of mutual identity, we have got self-same interests in the meantime that is finalizing the terrorist acts, at least that will give us the impression that it is going to be ended in there as well. So I think that we have got more than one thing in common, actually. From a materialistic point of view, we are very much tied to one another. They would get benefit, actually, by employing their own fortune in Egyptian companies in the treaties and the agreements that you have had. In much the same way that they are very much proud of their own country. Can you really understand the words of François Hollande when he said to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi that don't care so much about the quantity, about how very much expensive merchandised items would seem to be. We are very much careful about the quality. And we as French people, we as French manufacturers, we are offering actually the maximal amount of modern means of technology. And this is a sense of self-confidence of what they really are, of their own merchandising items actually. So if the French president is very much proud of his own country, I think that our words on the part of our own leader actually came to be quite representing self-same degree of great honor about the Egyptian employees and about the Egyptian investment. So, and it's, you know, I mean, outstanding appearance. I think that it is going to succeed, inshallah.
Mr. Nusir, if we can go into details, it seems that there is quite a lot of emphasis not only on the energy sector, but in the development of the Sinai area with the Suez Canal and the solar power plant that will be done in Sharm el-Sheikh. What does this signal to us, since this is maybe one of the first projects that the President embarked upon as well?
I think it's good to think of the fact that we have to, as you've mentioned, to differentiate between what is to be done and where it is to be done. And, it's long past and long due our actions in the Sinai and Peninsula and in the Suez Canal area. We've got to think very seriously of trying to develop these areas to a point whereabout we have enough people to live there, love living there, attract others to live there, and so on. And so I think it's very important, of paramount importance, to start having, you know, attractive points in Sinai to make sure that we are not having problems there much as we have opportunities over there. This is the answer to me, is the you know, answering your question. To the other point, whereabout when we think of what is to be brought in, we hate to be buying products. We hate to be producing products that we need to have something to import from outside.
But it's when you look at, if we analyze the kind of MOUs that are usually signed, not just with France, but we had France, we had Germany, it's mostly service-oriented, or the know-how. This is what you were always talking about. They're really trying, because when you build a power plant and you train people to operate the power plant, this is a know-how. It's not a matter of what was done in the past, unfortunately, which is just importing some goods and this is it, or taking loans or taking money. Do you see, as our methodology of cooperation, do you see it changing?
Well, I see changing in words and in agreement, because MOUs at the end of the day, memorandum of understanding, is not legally binding in any way. It's just saying that we both have a common understanding of something by now, period. But to tell, unless the MOU itself has some operable mechanism to turn it into agreement.
Well, if you sign, if we take an example, for example, when you sign that you're an MOU for the development or the building of a solar power plant in Sharm el-Sheikh.
I think, you know,
because we have a lot signed in energy, in the field of energy.
I mean, I understand this.
Or the tramway, and it has been specified, the tramway that is in Heliopolis and the vicinity. You have another MOU in the implementation of another phase in the Cairo metro, which is really a continuation, because we've had the French cooperation in the Cairo railway or metro for some since the inception of the idea.
Well, to me, I'm an engineer. I'm a pragmatic person. Let's see how it's going to be down into earth, down to earth, to the point that we can implement it. When are we going to implement it? How are we going to implement it? Why am I going to implement it now and pay money for it? How is it going to make a return, and when? And how many persons or employees can be there? And how, most important, is how am I going to be going on without depending on others? Otherwise, we always going to be begging somebody.
But the examples I just used, these are examples of dependency on others, or I mean, when you develop a railway, a metro line, or a water sanitation plant, water treatment plant, or a solar power plant, or even other power plant. How is this?
Well, I think...
hit me, yeah. The way is that, am I going to get this, whatever it is, it's a train, metro, whatever, am I going to get it and get my people to be trained to do it? Okay? Or am I going to be depending on you to have any of the consumables, say a bolt and a nut, for it to keep going? Or am I going to be...
You're the engineer, you tell us. In the examples we stated right now.
I'm saying if it is up to me, which is, I'm trying my best for years now to do it, and we are about to do it, the fact is not only thinking of a project, I have first to think of a project that is having a good return, properly taken.
Well, most of those projects we need. It's not a matter of return.
Yeah.
These are
great. I'm going to say that now, gentlemen, we would like to have you give us not only the know-how to bring it and transfer it, or operate it and maintain it, corrective maintenance and protective maintenance, both. Over and above that, I need to know how to manufacture the consumables. The consumables, by the consumables I mean that the bolts and nuts that by time need to be replaced. And this would minimize the what we call it protective maintenance. Over and above the fact that I evade corrective maintenance, because corrective maintenance meaning that something all of a sudden happens, and until I do it quite, sometimes very urgent. It has to be done urgently, otherwise something bad happens. Like, for example, stops wherever, and then other metro coming, so I have to have signals, and I have.
But
so
this is already in place.
In place, yes. I'm saying...
We're expanding the line, we're introducing
fine,
different...
but I'm saying now, I need to have the know-how that is enough for me to produce whatever is needed for this. Not only that, but also whatever can make me produce whatever it is that know-how to African nations, for example. And I can negotiate with the manufacturers the fact that we are closer, we have, closer in many, not only geographically, but in many ways, go ahead and keep going, producing something new, and let me take whatever you have, and then I start what we call horizontal expansion rather than vertical integration, is the fact that I can transfer that know-how to other countries. Then I'm starting to transfer my status from a utilizer of the technology to a producer of not necessarily latest type of technology, but the regular type of technology. Like for example, now, pasteurized milk, or get a train, or this is not new technologies. So it's an old technology, and we better have it such that we transfer it to the point that we become producers. We need to get to this point. First, we got to the point where we're self-sufficient in utilizing this, upgrading the system, expanding the system and then transferring the know-how, we're getting something for their patents, if there is any patent. We join forces, but let's join the march of being productive, not just utilizing. You see my point?
Yes.
Have I explained myself?
Yes, I
at this
understand.
point?
I understand your concern.
Crucial. Otherwise, we're always going to be begging. And not only that, we're always going to be having unemployment at rates which produces social problems.
Yes.
I cannot underscore what I'm talking about as of its importance for us to keep on going ahead and having our think tanks to produce what is beyond what we have. This is also another very important.
If I can to the cultural side, and one of the things that Mr. Hassan was saying is that in the pipeline is a preparation of an exhibition in the Suez Canal for 2018.
Right.
Egypt and France will enjoy long historical and cultural ties.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we are facing a serious issue of misconception and stereotypes pertaining to part of the world, not just Egypt, but Egypt, the Arab world, Islam, the essence of Islam, for example.
Yeah.
Can this cooperation, can France be our partner in shedding light on what Egypt is about, what the Arabs are about, what Islam is about? Can it be like the minaret?
Absolutely,
not just in Europe, but in the West.
In the West, right. Well, to be honest, yeah, absolutely right. In fact, don't forget the fact that at one stage, Egypt had been a French colony, actually, very much benefiting extent from the French ideas and teachings, as well as the followings of certain ethical values. For example, I would say that, the Rosetta Stone, actually, and the deciphering and the decoding, actually, of the ancient hieroglyphic Egyptian, actually. All I would like to say, actually, that the French people have had a first-hand knowledge, actually, of what the infrastructure of the Egyptian people are. This is very much important. They've had a first-hand knowledge during the course of the past, in much the same way that Francois Hollande is trying to rejuvenate that sort of direct contact, trust gaining actually from the land of mystery, from the land of culture, the land of civilization, the land of almost everything prosperous. Those people are very much intelligent enough, actually, as much as to think of investing their own fortunes, actually, in Egypt. Egypt seems to be quite the land of promise, actually, of the present times. And the expansion of the Suez Canal, the way it has been done, actually, would seem to be quite a very prosperous target, actually, to be initiated and to be implemented, actually, on the part not only France, but almost all the European world, actually. They are keeping an eye on Egypt, on Egyptian territory, on Egyptian infrastructure, actually, and even of the Egyptian people as well. They know them for sure. They know what's what and which is which, and who is who about the Egyptian people, who they really actually. That's why investing, actually, such an extreme amount of money on the part of the French authorities and governmental distinctive circles wouldn't seem to be quite a waste. They know their own target, they know their own way, and the mutual identification between the Egyptian part as much as the French on the other, I think, would not come to no avail, would not fail at the end of the day. It would reach its own target. It would reach to its inevitable destiny, actually, which seems to be quite very much prosperous at the time being. That is absolute success. Not only success from an economic point of view, also on a military aspect, actually, and from the cultural heritage. As I've told you at the very beginning that, the French people have had a first-hand knowledge about the Egyptian heritage and the Egyptian cultural ways and the principles of etiquette as well. During that early hundreds of years ago, actually, they have had what you might call the ins and outs of the Egyptian infrastructure and the land. And as such, they are coming to a land that they know it inside out. They are not wasting their own time.
But how can we use this bondage to shed light on things here?
Well,
Let us not forget a war with the media.
yeah,
The media is putting it's misinforming.
absolutely.
To put it diplomatically, it's really
Yeah.
putting the wrong pictures in people's minds. How can we make sure that we can partner with someone like France, who, as you said, has its own discoveries in Egypt,
Yeah.
to correct this, to correct image, to portray the right image to the people?
Right. Well, I think by striking a very good example, not only for France, but for the West, for all the Western world, actually, that we are ideal figures, actually, in the real sense of the word, that we deserve our own land, that we deserve our own cultural heritage, that we deserve the pyramids, we deserve Sinai as much as we deserve the Suez Canal, actually, immediately after its own wide expansion. I think that we would have to put an end for the terrorist acts and terrorism, actually, internally first, establishing our own deeply rooted heritage, deeply rooted cultural details and civilized word, the sort of the word that had once been known as the best among the rest, actually.
We have with us on the line Mr. Hassan Behnan. He wants to comment. Well, actually, we will be having him on the line. There's a technical problem. Gentlemen, one of the issues that we are also cooperating with is the health sector. Health,
Yeah.
health. We've signed an MOU in the field of social protection, especially when it comes to health insurance, and this is really one of the issues which we are suffering from, quite frankly, and France has a very, very strong health system, and Egypt has really knocked on the Canadian example and now the French example in this. Do you think, how do you envision us moving forward in this field, since really the health insurance is quite an expensive sector, and yet we have to put some kind of a strategy as per our constitution?
First, may I make a comment about what
Sure,
you
go
were
ahead.
discussing? I'm going to go and then come to this point. Is the fact that I remember one time when I first, started these dialogues when I went to the West and lived in the West. Is the fact one American I always remember telling me, "You guys don't know how to win the battle with us." And I always remember when this is brought up, the fact that you leftists think that our roots belong to the Greeks. If you are to come and tell us that the Greeks got their culture from you, and convince us of the process and what it is, then and only then we are going to be thinking of you as the roots, and we are to protect you. This, to me, I always remember it, because true. I mean, the Greeks, when you go and read there, you talk about the Romans and before the Greeks and the thinking of the Greeks, and come back to Plato and Socrates,
Yeah.
again and again and again and again. Well, my God, they took all that from us. This is, if we are to like the book of the dead, and whatever, because this came well before maybe two centuries or 2 centuries, no, much more than that, about 10 centuries before the Greeks started. If we're going to tell them, here we are, propose at one time, let this be in our constitution, and then we start digging this and making our people know how to deal with this problem and keep knocking on it until they know that this is a fact.
Right.
No one is going to tell us that he had constructed our pyramids in long history. Will be known that they came well after this had happened.
Well,
and at this point, I'll stop and come to your...
When I had been
I-
in Britain quite about 15 years ago, I've been
I'll
asked
interrupt you for a second,
yeah.
because we have on the line Mr. Hassan Behnan. He wants to
Easy,
comment. Mr. Hassan, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
You have a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what distinguished guests were saying, particularly Dr. Salah Nusseir, who mentioned if these agreements will be implemented or not. I just want to assure you that at least 3 of these MOUs or agreements are loans by the French Agency for Development, which in French is Agence Française, concerning the Gulf of Suez plant. It's for 50 million euros, and the other one is the Electrical Control Center for 50 million euros. These are loans. And the gas to be installed in the low-class areas for 70 million euros. So this is one point. So this will be done. The agreements have been signed. These are agreements, not MOUs. The second one, in 2 words, is the cultural issues. You mentioned the projected exhibition on the Suez Canal in 2018. I would like just to say that President François Hollande, during his visit, after visiting the Citadel, he took a walk in the streets of Cairo. I think personally that this was also a message, as your distinguished guest was saying, it's shown all over the world. This was a message not only to France, not only to Europe, but to the world, that Cairo is a safe country and it's safe for tourists. The second one is when he visited the parliament, I believe that this also was a message to say that the 3rd phase of the roadmap is complete, and now Egypt has its own official and positive institutions that are working. Now let's go start working and dealing and exchanging and bilateral relations. So this is what I meant a few minutes ago when I spoke about the casting that is in favor of more business, particularly with France. And this is one of the reasons why this strong French delegation accompanied President François Hollande. Thank you. Sorry for the intervention.
Thank you for the clarification. Do you have any comments or questions to?
No, because I didn't quite hear it, so I don't have any comments unless you
Mr. Hassan was giving us concrete information about the MOUs and that they're coming in terms. 3 of them have actually materialized. They're coming in donations, and he put.
Nobody would be happier than I.
Numbers to the agreements and how they're being secured. Let's put it this way.
Great. If this happens, materializes, this is what we want.
Mr. Hassan, thank you again for your comment. Gentlemen, we cannot ignore a tragic incident which is being exploited right now in Egypt, and that is the incident of the death of the Italian citizen Regini. President François Hollande had very, very strong comment pertaining this issue, that in his point of view, a single incident should not be used to destroy relations between nations. Your comment?
I think this would be great if he convinces his people, not just the French people, but the Europeans, when the European Parliament, when he had read it, and this is, he has to speak with the European parliaments and convince them of what he said. This would be great if he can do that. That's one. If you, my comment, but let me talk about some question you asked me about the health.
Yes, but we have 2 minutes left, please.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
with the health, I'm quite hopeful if we have the instruments they know that are based on the latest technologies, because this can make the process, speed it up to a point where the insurance would not be that problem. So,
your final comments.
Yeah, actually, if these words were to come from a man of the prestigious existence and atmosphere as much as Hollande is, the fifth largest nation actually in the world that obtains the veto right to say yes or no whenever it would go. And as such, actually, I think this is to our own interest, actually, as the Egyptian people, as our presidential authorities, as much as our own political decisions, actually. So I think that the final outcome, actually, of this visit would seem to be, in every conceivable respect, in the interests of the Egyptian citizens, as much as clarifying the issue of the situation of Egypt as the land of peace, actually, apart from any sort of misconcept or ill treatment, actually, on the part of other European countries, I would say.
Dr. Salah Nusseir, research and development expert, a pleasure to have you with us. Dr. محمد عبد الحليم, political analyst and professor of English.
That pleasure is mine.
Pleasure to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you both for your fruitful input. I'd like to thank you, the viewers, and we'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.